Good evening, everybody. Can y'all hear me loud and clear? This is Brother Ron. Loud and clear, Brother Ron. Just gonna test some things out. Testing, testing. See if we live. We all the way live. Is it some jive, or are we all the way live? Is it some jive, or are we all the way live? Yeah, I can hear myself loud and clear. Lunceford is our business. Business show is well. Lunceford is our business. Yes, this is Jimmie Lunceford land tonight. Boys and girls, scholars and laymen, you're gonna learn some stuff today. It's about this is Black December, one of the unofficial Black History months as far as I'm concerned. A lot of interesting things happened to and made by black folks. People came into this world. Do you remember that month of December? December is an interesting month for black folk. Carter G. Woodson made his debut in December. You know, Fred Hampton Sr. left in December. So we got a lot of things that we can cover as a people. And my thing is, I'm tired of all this junk food that a lot of our so-called new black media feeds. I mean, black folks, we're very toxic. We need a detox. We need some type of detox. And also, we need to look to the past for inspiration. Some of y'all like to celebrate Kwanzaa. Think about Sankofa. Looking back towards the past for inspiration in your present to make a better future, a better tomorrow, tomorrow. So this is why I got to share the stories of the righteous ancestors. One in particular, James Melvin Lunceford, also known as Jimmie Lunceford, really the true unsung king of swing. It's funny how, like I say sometimes, hashtags, we got to reclaim the narrative. So a lot of our history has been lost and now it's found because there is no reason why we can't tell our stories on our own terms. And I want to reverse that curse of where we love our traitors, yet we hate or loathe our heroes. And Jimmie Lunceford was a hero, very extraordinary man, very distinguished gentleman, truly, in the words of Duke Ellington, beyond category. So we're gonna do a couple things because this is officially the beginning of the 2020 Jimmie Lunceford Jamboree Festival. But this year, this is the virtual edition, meaning that we will utilize social media, online platforms, things like YouTube, Facebook, and stuff, to pay homage to this phenomenal black man and human being, Jimmie Lunceford, who was born June 6, 1902, down in Fulton, Mississippi. A lot of great black people, white people, all types of people come out the great Magnolia State. It gets a bad rep a lot of times, well deserved and earned, but also balance the pros and cons. A lot of great, interesting people out that state, especially when it comes to music. A lot of people don't understand that there have been more Grammy nominated artists associated with the state of Mississippi than from any state in the union. More Grammy nominated, artists have an interesting association with the state of Mississippi. Some of your favorite artists either were born there or they got a connection that's very strong there in the Magnolia State. You look at somebody like Aretha Franklin, who was born in Memphis, Tennessee, but both of her parents are from Mississippi. Quincy Jones people is from Mississippi, from Vicksburg. You had the great Lester Young, one of the greatest tenor saxophonists of all time, born in Woodville, Mississippi. Lil Hardy Armstrong, she was born in Memphis, but her folks come out of Oxford, Mississippi. This is Louis Armstrong's wife who made him a superstar. She upgraded Satchmo, made him the man that we know and love today. That's his second wife, Lil Hardin, who's from Memphis, but folks from Mississippi. You even think about, Snoop Dogg, his people from Mississippi. Him and Brandy. Brandy's from Mississippi, Macomb, Mississippi. Brandy and Snoop are cousins. People deep from Mississippi. You look at a place like Clarksdale, 17,000 people lived there, but that town produced the likes of Sam Cooke, who was born by the he was born by the Sunflower River in a tenement. That's what it really should be saying. He was born by the Sunflower River down at Clarksdale in the projects. In a tenement. You also have Ike Turner's from Clarksdale. You have Smoke Weed Every Day. Nate Dogg's from Clarksdale, Mississippi. Rick Ross, Lemon Pepper from Clarksdale, Mississippi. Bessie Smith died in Clarksdale, Mississippi. A lot of interesting musicians, creatives. John Lee Hooker, even Muddy Waters grew up on the Stovall plantation in Coahoma County, where Clarksdale is located. So I go on and on with this type of stuff, but you get the picture, I hope, see how it works. But let's focus on the man of the moment, Jimmie Lunceford. Why does Jimmie Lunceford matters? Because really, if you look at Jimmie Lunceford, he was what these celebrities of today should be like, in terms of he was very popular during this time. His heyday was 1930 through 1947. So he had like a 17-year career, but it really took off in the 30s. But he started as an educator in Memphis at Manassas High School. But he took his best students and buddies from Fisk University, where he graduated from, and formed the most popular swing band, jazz orchestra at that time. His band was more popular among black people than Duke Ellington's or Count Basie's. But you hear about Duke and Count, but the thing about it is they lived longer than Lunceford. Count and Duke lived into their 70s. Jimmie was taken from us under questionable circumstances at the age of 45. But we're going to get a little bit into that tonight. But also, we got 14 days. Like normally, when we do the Jimmie Lunceford Jamboree Festival, it will be like a whole week of program events for 7 days. There'll be something going on in the community in Memphis, Tennessee. But this year, of course, with the pandemic, scamdemic, epidemic, whatever you want to call it, things have changed. So we're doing everything pretty much virtual, but we should have some interesting shows and content for you all over the next 14 days. I have challenged myself to create something Jimmie Lunceford related or music related to Black excellence for the next 14 days. I'll have guests on the show to talk about these things, as well as we're going to honor the 2020 Jimmie Lunceford Jamboree Festival Homecoming Court. And this year, we are paying homage to really true Memphis treasures. They should be national treasures. People like Bobby Lavelle, the great saxophonist and reed specialist, the son of the great blues man, Honeymoon Gardner. We also got Sister Joyce Cobb. Bobby Lavelle is the king for this year's homecoming court. Sister Joyce Cobb, who is a great educator, songstress from Nashville. She is our queen. We also got Sister Jackie Murray. She's the princess this year. Great actress, songstress in her own right. And also Dr. Alvin McKinney, the prime minister of Joyful Jazz, is our year's prince. Our posthumous king and queen are a sister and brother duo like no other. The sister Vera Little, a great opera star from middle 20th century. She is the first Black American musician to perform at the Vatican. Once again, first Black American musician to perform at the Vatican in the 20th century. Then her brother is Booker Little, one of the greatest jazz trumpeters of all time. Brilliant jazz musician, gone too soon at the age, I want to say off the top of my head, of 23. He was taken from us at the age of 23. This guy was so committed. He was like what they call a pure soul. Like when Clifford Brown, the great trumpet player from Wilmington, Delaware, died in that tragic car accident. I want to say Clifford was about 26 years old. He died in that tragic car accident in Pennsylvania on his way to a gig, I believe, in Chicago with Max Roach and Sonny Rollins. And he died along with Richie Powell, the little brother of the jazz great, piano great Bud Powell, as well as Richie Powell's wife, who I believe was driving the car and lost control on the Pennsylvania Turnpike. This is back in 1956. But Booker Little said, I guess, to his friend jazz great Charles Lloyd, that he wished that he could have taken Clifford's place and let Clifford live. Cause it was a song that was made popular back in the day. You know, I remember Clifford. I think it's called "I Remember Clifford." Dinah Washington sung it. A lot of great versions to that song. I remember Clifford. Like it's like a song they play. It's kind of like, well, it's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday, right? Was that the Beatles and the Boys to Man did the thing, but Booker T. Little and his sister Vera Little, two music geniuses in one family. Man, incredible. And that's Memphis for you. They both went to Manassas High School, where Jimmie Lunceford was the first high school orchestra director or band leader in the Memphis public schools, at least for black students or black schools. And he volunteered to do that. So I want to play the reflaying that we did this year on his birthday. We got an annual event where we do a reflaying at a historic Elmwood Cemetery. I want to say it's the oldest cemetery in Memphis. It predates the Civil War. A lot of Civil War veterans are buried in Elmwood. We even got an American Revolutionary soldier buried in Elmwood Cemetery. But it's a lot of history there. And Jimmie Lunceford, was buried there back in July 1947. So the We All Be Group Incorporated, my group, we have been doing for the last several years, going to his graveside to lay a wreath in honor of him on his birthday. So I want to play that we did this year in 2020, in spite of what's all was going on in the world. I'm a big fan of jazznocracy, the spread of jazz throughout the world. Music is healing. Music is love. Music is understanding. Music is truly beyond category. So I'm gonna play that, and then we'll come back and talk about some things y'all might be interested in. Because I always tell people that Black history is better than science fiction or a Hollywood movie. If we tell the truth about who we are as a people, if we tell the truth about who we are as a people, if we only understood who we were and are and will be as a people, a lot of the foolishness that we do to each other and against each other, all this stuff would stop, because we don't really have no understanding. And it's sad that Jimmie Lunceford had a better understanding of who he was back in the 20s and 30s and 40s than we do now. Like I said, he was a guy who was a philanthropist, a humanitarian. I'm going to talk about this. We're going to play the reflaying ceremony from this year, 2020, and then we'll get into that. We'll dissect Jimmie Lunceford, but we're going to have 14 days of real Black excellence. Like I said, I'm going to use this platform to educate our people about who we are so we can move forward, because people don't even understand the importance of learning this history. Like, y'all should know our history like y'all know these sports stats. Like, y'all be crazy for these football teams and basketball games and whatnot. I don't have time for all that foolishness no more. And Jimmie Lunceford was an incredible athlete, boxer, track star, football star, baseball star. But he chose to use music as a way to bring his people together. So we're going to talk about that. And I'm just going to play this. It's been floating out there this year, but we're going to play it because, like what Dick Gregory told me, just because we said this so many times on previous shows, it may be people listening for the first time to what I'm talking about. You may have came here because of some show I did with somebody or some topic, but this is a part of me too. And my thing is, if you want to make a great contribution to the world, you must share what you are passionate about with the world. If you want to live forever, you must share what you know with the world. They may forget your name, but your energy cannot be killed. It gets transferred. So it's just my hope and prayer that whoever is listening to this now or in the future will become inspired by something that is said or is done. Because I know the best is yet to come. And I still got a lot of love for my people. Like I said, we got to give as much energy, if not more, to our real heroes and sheroes as we do to the pretenders and the fakers and the traitors. Because to betray their legacy is to betray ourselves. So without further ado, let's play that clip of the 2020 Jimmie Lunceford Reef Lane ceremony. Make sure I find it. Because we're going to reclaim the narrative tonight, boys and girls, scholars and laymen. We are reclaiming the narrative tonight. So thank you all for joining and who will be joining soon. Just trying to get used to all this technology. But yeah, it's been an interesting week. And if you are bored in 2020, you're not doing it right. Because I'm never bored. There's always some stuff going on in 2020. Okay, I'm never bored. And I'm never scared because the best is yet to come. So let's start playing it. Let me know if you can hear the audio and whatnot.
Needless of the wind and weather. La 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 la.
Yeah, you hear that too. La 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 la.
Thank you, everybody, for coming out. I appreciate it. This is the observance of the 118th Happy Life Affirmation Day of the one and only James Melvin Lunceford, also known properly as Jimmie Lunceford. And we're going to do this because we want to honor him on his birthday, which is June 6th. He was born June 6, 1902, down in Fulton, Mississippi. He was actually raised in Denver, Colorado. And what makes him so significant is that he is credited with being the first person to teach jazz studies in a formal educational setting. And he did that at a black school known as Manassas High School in Memphis, Tennessee, back in the 20s. And what I love about this man is that he knew back in 1920s that Black Lives Matter. He actually took his time using his talents and his abilities to educate, inform, and empower a group of young men or young boys or young adults coming into manhood at Manassas High School, shared his love of music, disciplined them. They went on the road, became the house band at the Cotton Club after Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway, became the #1 attraction at the Apollo Theater, For 1 decade. They was the most popular attraction in the Apollo Theater. He put the show in Showtime, one of the first bands to have tailor-made suits. They did comedy, singing, all that. You know, you probably get it for less than $1 back in the 1940s. And also, he was an aviation pioneer. He owned and flew his own airplanes at a time where the U.S. of A. was not interested in training black folks to even fly for Uncle Sam, a la Tuskegee Airmen. So what I love about him is his giving spirit is that no matter how big he became as an entertainer, he will always give back to the black community. If he was, whether it was White Plains, New York, or Memphis, Tennessee, or Los Angeles, or Oklahoma, or Denver, he actually started music education programs to keep young black children out of trouble and to teach them life skills. At the time of his death, he was looking for real estate to start a retirement community for black musicians. So he was taking care of the young and old. He believed in the village concept. And unfortunately, we lost him at an early age. July 12th, 1947, he was signing autographs up in Seaside, Oregon, right before a concert at a music shop. He dropped dead allegedly of a heart attack. Some people believe he was poisoned by a racist restaurant owner before the gig. And what's interesting about Oregon, Oregon is the only state in the Union which had in its constitution, when it became a state back in 1859, this is 2 years before the Civil War, that blacks could not live or own property in Oregon. So that's the Pacific Northwest. That's not below the Mason-Dixon line. And speaking below the Mason-Dixon line, also buried in the cemetery with Jimmie Lunceford, the father of, let's say, music education, of jazz music education. Not too far away from here is the resting place of the mortal remains of Herman Frank Arnold. Now, Herman Frank Arnold was a guy who was one of the composers of Dixie. I wish I was in Dixie, hooray, oh no, we are in Dixie. But he wrote that song, one of the co-composers. He actually played that song for Jefferson Davis when he was sworn in as the president of the Confederacy in Montgomery, Alabama, at the state capitol. So that's something that a lot of people may not know. But what we want to do is make sure that we resurrect the memory of Jimmie Lunceford, and that he should not be forgotten about. Because like Nat D. Williams, the great historian and also longtime educator at Booker T. Washington High School, and also radio pioneer, he said his place of burial should have a significance for black people. Jimmie Lunceford could have chose to live anywhere in the world, but he chose to live among his own people and to give back to his people, and also to believe in our youth, to invest in our youth, to scale the heights of musical eminence. Now, I'm paraphrasing what Nat D. Williams said, but also Jimmie Lunceford was held in high esteem by his peers. He was considered the best of the best in terms of swing band orchestration and live performances, like no less of authority than Glenn Miller, who many consider the white Jimmie Lunceford, and they consider Jimmie Lunceford the black Glenn Miller, like kind of like a Magic Johnson, Larry Bird kind of rivalry. He said that Jimmie Lunceford tops both Duke Ellington and Count Basie, that he was above them, even though they were great. He just had a special thing about him. He had a special sound, the two-beat sound. Matter of fact, Jimmie Lunceford was the popular band of choice for black people in America, hence the name the Harlem Express. It was very popular among dancers of the 30s and 40s. They would play for at times tens of thousands of fans, and he was constantly crowned the king of the battle of the bands because he would actually outperform the likes of a Duke Ellington, a Chick Webb, Count Basie, Glenn Miller, named Woody Herman, all these guys, even Benny Goodman. He just had that sound that everybody wanted to hear and move and groove to. So I think this is a fitting tribute to Mr. Lunceford that we remember him on June 6th of his birthday, June 6th. And it is my hope that Memphians will embrace this heritage that we have, this rich musical heritage. Because not only Mr. Lunceford, with Memphis roots, made his mark on the world, but also Louis Armstrong's second wife, who made him a superstar, Lil Hardy Armstrong, was from Memphis. She was born near Bill Street, February 3rd, 1898, and she was the one that made Louis a superstar. Or you think about Maurice White, a graduate of Booker T. Washington High School, where Jimmie Lunceford's wife taught English, Crystal Tully Lunceford. He is the architect and the visionary behind one of the greatest, if not the greatest, R&B funk groove group of all time, Earth, Wind, and Fire. So, I mean, I'm just on the tip of the iceberg when we talk about the greatness of Memphis in terms of giving the world such amazing music and also contributing to the world culture on a grand scale. Memphis is a great brand, a great place to be from, and I am blessed to be able to be an ambassador of Memphis history, especially its music history, as every year we honor the legacy of Jimmie Lunceford with a full week of festivities. The last week in October, or maybe the last, I mean, this is 2020, might be the second to the last week in October this time because of the COVID-19 stuff going on. So we're going to do the Jimmie Lunceford Jamboree Festival. We honor Memphis musicians and also try to educate and empower the public, especially young school children and music educators about this amazing legacy.
In less than a year, we have grown to see six-figure revenue per month on
that we have in our midst. So there are so many things. Anybody want to say anything? Nobody want to say anything? Okay, I know he want to say something. No, I want you, brother. We want you up here. All right. Right, how you doing? You want to say some words?
Go ahead.
I just talking. I just finished my talk.
You just finished?
Yeah, for the most part.
You got to move back.
Yeah, move out your way.
All right. You want to introduce me? I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I
I'm definitely
just walk up there. You know, they say, "Who is that dude?"
Well, I'm gonna edit it. I'm gonna cut it. But okay, I can do it. You know, such thing as mistakes. So, speaking of great Memphis musicians and of their rich musical heritage and legacy, we got a living legend, a master griot, a storyteller through rhythm and reason, the one and only beyond category, brother Ekpe Abioto. I got your water. You want? Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let me take off my mask. Let me take my mask off. Can y'all see me, hear me? Let me take my mask off.
Oh yeah. Also, let me say, yeah, you take a mask off.
I can't take
in
mask.
2020. And also, we honor brother Ekpe as the 2018 Jimmie Lunceford Jamboree Festival homecoming court. Was he Prince or King?
I was King.
King.
Yeah, King. Matter of fact,
I'll take King.
Matter of fact, he was King. No, and not only was he King, but he also had a historic collaboration with the Sun Ra Orchestra. It was their first time playing in Memphis, which I can't believe. And we was able to bring them here. And Ekpe sat in and did his thing. Amazing historical night, beautiful people, beautiful music. And I'm glad we were able to do that because we just lost Danny Ray Thompson, the baritone saxophonist and one of the leaders of the band. He passed away March this year. And I'm just glad we was able to make that happen. I'm glad he was able to get that barbecue brisket sandwich he wanted. But I'm glad that Danny Ray Thompson was able to be here for that amazing event because he really helped me engineer that along with Mike Kirk Institute and Rose. And I'm glad that Ekpe was able to play with these guys. We got the footage and the evidence that he did his thing. So thank you, brother Ekpe.
Thank you. We want to give thanks to the creator for allowing us to be here and these great people here. Ron Hurd, his mother, Sister Kelly Hurd, and one and only Miss Deborah Gleese Barnes here with us. Huh? Oh, she's the queen. She's the queen. That's right. She's the queen. Matter of fact, I was looking a few weeks ago. I was on television one night, and then they were playing some shows of Saturday Night Live.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just had the TV on. It was 1977. They said when they came on, they said they're gonna do. Ray Charles was performing. I said, Ray Charles, 1977. I said, wait a minute. I think I know somebody that was with Ray Charles in 1977. My old church member, Providence African Methodist Episcopal Church. And there it was. I looked and saw Deborah on there with Ray Charles. And she was doing her thing. Yeah, and I called her and said, wait a minute, So she got to see that, Had you ever seen that before?
Yes,
You had seen it before?
I have.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
But not in a long.
You was there.
So we were able to kind of get the word out about that once again, showing once again how great the Memphis musicians are. That Ray Charles had that great respect for Memphis musicians, and of course Hank Crawford was there.
Yes.
He was on that. He at one time was you may have mentioned this already. I don't want to be
No, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. He was Hank Crawford from Manassas High School in North Memphis, the great Manassas High School. Once again, where Jimmie Lunceford. Everything coming back around in a circle. Where Jimmie Lunceford was the band director there, and so Hank Crawford he played in the band, but he was also his music director for a while for Ray Charles. So those who don't know that, you have to understand the greatness, has been talked about already. The greatness of Memphis music and Memphis musicians and the whole history. Wherever we go around the world, I can personally attest to it, and I'm doing Deborah can too. Wherever we go in the world, when we say we're from Memphis, they said, "You from Memphis?" So it's like they struck gold, right? Yeah, Memphis needs to know. That's why we tell these stories, so that people and pass it down to our children too, so that they can know. Everybody needs to know how great the Memphis musicians are. Wherever we go in the world, I mean, Africa, Japan, Germany, France. I don't care where I can name all more names. Bermuda. I mean, anywhere. When you say Memphis music, they know somebody from Memphis. Isaac Hayes in Africa, they say Isaac Hayes. That's how they pronounce Isaac. Isaac Hayes. Oh, Isaac Hayes. Like Moses. So this is just some of the history that we know about the great Memphis music. And we even right here, you mentioned it already, but of course, just across, as they say, a stone's throw from here is where Maurice White grew up. In Lemoyne, God, you may have mentioned this already. I don't
go ahead.
Reinvent the wheel. Just a stone's throw, just on the other side of that street, is where Maurice White grew up. In Lemoyne Garden, the garden we call it. So many great musicians were there. Joe Dukes, drummer. Joe Dukes also grew up in Lemoyne Gardens, so he played with some of everybody too as well. Look up Joe Dukes. A lot of people don't know about him. Joe Dukes, as a matter of fact, Maurice White talks about Joe Dukes in his book, in his autobiography. Great drummer, Joe Dukes, one of the greatest drummers from anywhere. So Memphis has a history of drummers as well with the Newborn family. And I don't want to reinvent the wheel again.
No,
you may have talked about the Newborn family already.
No.
Yeah. Calvin Newborn, Phineas Newborn, and Phineas Newborn Sr. He had his own group. He played drums, and that's where his sons took off from. So we could stand here forever and just make all these connections. And they came from a great high school, Booker T. Washington High School. So we could go, as Erykah Badu say, on and on and on and on. So we can make these connections forever. So anyway, in this thing that's happening, we got the pandemic happening where, we've been doing it already, all these disparities with black people. The economics, and if you tie the economics to the music, if we were able to harness the economics of our music, we'd be the richest people in the world financially. Just from our music. But other people have control of that. So we need what I call a BES, Black Economic Structure. So that we can tie our culture in. We need to monetize and naturalize our own culture for us. Other people, you talk about the history. Here we are in Memphis. Memphis is the Delta. It's the top of the Delta. So the musicians played in the field where they were chopping cotton or whatever the master had them to do. And the master said, okay, I'll tell you what, you Fiddler, let's use Fiddler for instance, we all know about Ruth. I'm gonna use the term Fiddler. Fiddler, you can take off. You don't have to, you don't have to stay in the field till 9 o'clock tonight. You can knock off at 7. So you can get ready to come up to play for the party in the big house. Now Fiddler glad to get out the field. He's glad to get out of the field, so he want to play his fiddle. So he's happy to get out of the field. and go play his fiddle for the master at his party. But did Fiddler get paid? Fiddler didn't get paid. He got a meal. Everybody throw him something out the back door, after he finished playing. So this is what we're looking at. And so this is the progression of the music industry, actually. We didn't know we were supposed to be getting paid. He just tell us to come and play. And even after slavery, the same thing happened. If you sharecropping, oh, just come on down there and play over here. And they collected money at the door. But you don't get a dime of it. You just glad that boss man told you can knock off 2 hours early to get out the field. So that's how the progression of it. And so most of us did not learn the business aspect of how things went because we were not privy to that. Matter of fact, it was intentionally kept from us by design, which coming back up to today. The economic disparity is why we're in these conditions that we're in. The economic disparity is why they could kill George Floyd and have no repercussions. But now they feel the repercussions. They feel the drum beat now. They got the percussions hitting the cities now using a musical terminology.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an opportunity now. 2020 vision. 2020 means clear vision. We need to see now. We need to see with this 2020 vision what the real conditions of Black people are. We were brought to this country to be slaves, and nothing has really changed. In essence, few minor gains here and there with a few people, but in essence, the masses of us as a people. So that's why this is Black Music Month that we're talking now. And I did something. I poured libation for Breonna Taylor yesterday. She would have been 27 years old yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
The young lady that was killed in Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah.
In her bed, shot in her own bed. And those 3 criminals who killed her from the police department, let me make that clear, are still running loose. They didn't get arrested. They're still out there. Just like the ones that killed Ahmaud Arbery 2 months before anything was done about that. They finally charged them the other day. They got charged. They went to jail. They went to jail, 2-3 weeks ago. But now they had a hearing, preliminary hearing. So all this comes down to a Black body as a commodity, dead or alive. Dead or alive. When we came over on the slave ships, many of us died, but they had insurance on us, so they still reap the benefit. They capitalized on the loss of a Black life, whether we died or not. Property loss. So, and we're still dealing with this today. And we have to understand that this is the situation that we're in. So our music is a commodity that we need to have control of. Our music. And if you want to talk about Memphis and the economic situation in Memphis, Memphis is one of the worst sections economically for Black folks. Memphis is one of the worst cities economically for Black people. But look at our great history. Look at our great history. Elvis has an estate. But does Isaac Hayes, known by his African name, Nene Kateo Kansi, does he have an estate? Say that again?
We have the right one.
Right. They have a big mansion out there that's tourism. People come from all over the world to go to Elvis's mansion. Who, by the way, once again, we all know this story. He hung out down on Beale Street, and Calvin Newborn told me personally. He said you may know this story. He may have said he's got a book out too that he talks about this. Elvis came down on Beale Street and he said, "Well, can I play your guitar?" He asked Calvin Newborn, "Okay, I'll let you play." He said, "Yeah." He broke one of the strings on my guitar. That's what Calvin said. Broke one of the strings on my guitar. But anyway, he took Black culture. Elvis did, shaking his hips and dancing, being like Calvin and the other Calvin Newborn and the other Black entertainers who not only just played the instruments, but they entertained. You know, Jimmie Lunceford, for instance, you know, they had choreography while they were playing. They were choreographers playing the instruments at the same time. So Elvis, all this was a part of what Elvis did. That's how he became famous. So anyway, you get the point I'm making. So Elvis has a multi-million-dollar estate. But the newborn family, no. So we have to understand the power of our music. Power of our music. So, in this situation that we're dealing with now, the song, to me, Jimmie Lunceford said, it ain't what you do, it's the way how you do it. So we want equity. We got to find the right way to get it. I was listening to somebody this morning, rioting and protesting, that's one part of the solution. But he said that's not sustainable, of course. We need something sustainable. So we won't be in this same situation 10 years from now, 20 years ago, from now. So anyway, it ain't what you do, it's the way how you do it. So we got to figure out the best way to get ourselves together with best, with a black economic structure. That's what we need. And hey, it's like this. Everybody loves our music. I don't care where we're going to world, as I mentioned before. So hey, their money, you get the point I'm making. If you like it, you need to be paying for it too. I don't care if you're black, white, or polka dot. Doesn't matter. So it ain't what you do, it's the way how you do it.
Yeah. Excellent.
Oh, by the way, I played that little Charlie Parker riff too.
I heard that. You know, it's bird.
Charlie Parker riff in there, little bird riff.
That's a Centennial.
Yes.
Yeah, but his dad is from here.
You know the story. That's right. He was a performer on Bill Street, and I wonder sometimes was he part of that group because a lot of black people left here and went out to Oklahoma out there.
Right.
I'm wondering if
a lot of Black Wall Street folks were from here.
Right, they were from here. That's the
they
point I'm
left
making.
after their people grocery store.
Right, that's right.
That's a lot of black folks from Memphis.
That's right. They left from Memphis, went out there.
That's something.
So that's why I'm thinking that he might have been a part of those people that left because that's where Charlie Parker was born up there in
Kansas City, Kansas.
Yeah. Kansas City, Kansas. So his father might have been a part of that migration out of Memphis because they weren't not getting equity here.
Because somebody was saying that his father was a part of a prominent family
a black family here. I don't know nothing about no Parkers, but I know they got some people in Clarksdale too. But they were like Phil Shapp was saying up in New York, white guy. His babysitter was Jimmy Crawford, Jimmie Lunceford's drummer.
Okay.
And Phil Shapp is a cousin with Jeremy Shapp or Dick Shapp, the famous sports writer.
Okay.
But I saw he said, he basically saying that his daddy came from a prominent family down this way.
Okay.
So I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know the history.
So, these are just things we put together and throw it out there and we might figure it out. We just kind of brainstorm it out a little bit and we can find out the real answers later.
Right. Oh, definitely.
We know that he was from, Charlie Parker's father was from Memphis and he left and went to Kansas City, Kansas. And so that's where Charlie Parker was born. So once again, Black Music Month, celebrating Jimmie Lunceford, the music of Jimmie Lunceford. Once again, thank you all very much. Peace.
Yeah, okay. They call y'all Reds, right? Or Raylets. Okay, I thought so.
That's not necessary.
Yeah. Well, also, I mean, this is like, we got music royalty, Memphis music royalty. That's Brother Ekpe Abioto, really an ensemble, one of the greatest live bands I ever heard in my life, the African Jazz Ensemble, one of the greatest. Like, but Memphis got this thing about the most known unknown. The influence is great, but sometimes people don't get all the credit they deserve. You think about Kansas City, the cat that gave them their barbecue identities from Memphis or from Shelby County. Henry Perry, a black man from here, I guess it would be now Memphis, but was Shelby County back then, unincorporated Memphis. Yeah. He went to Kansas City and taught the guys who founded Gates Barbecue and Arthur Bryant's. He's some of the biggest names in Kansas City barbecue. But it was a cat from Shelby County, Henry Perry. He's in the Barbecue Hall of Fame, as far as I know. He taught them guys how to barbecue. Yeah. So Memphis is a very phenomenal place, like Memphis, Egypt, Memphis, Tennessee, a place of economic, religious, and cultural commerce. Yeah. Everything come through here. It might not stay here. Yeah. Everything got to run through here. That's right, in the middle of the country. So I think that that's why I said, Brother Ekpe, you a treasure, and people need to know this history. And I think people would be better off if they knew it, because like you said, you go anywhere in the country. I go like Los Angeles, or I go to New York, or I go to Baltimore, and you say you're from Memphis, and open doors. And there's people that's doing things of note in these places, but you never knew they had a Memphis connection. So speaking to somebody who did some phenomenal things as an ambassador of the Memphis sound, this wonderful, humble sister, she's really a beautiful woman in so many ways, very expressive, very helpful, comes from a beautiful family. And she's also a member of one of the most legendary groups, company, the Raylets. This is Ray Charles' hand-selected group of singers that made a lot of his hits. This is Ray Charles. He could see that she had talent. You know what I'm saying? He could hear it, he could see it, he could feel it. I was lucky to see the Saturday Night Live clip y'all did back in the day, doing y'all thing, like you said, with Hank Crawford, another Memphis legend that we had a chance to honor before he passed. Yeah. The one and only Deborah Lees Barnes.
Yes.
Queen Deborah.
Thank you. I just want to say that I am very honored to be a part of this commemoration for Jimmie Lunceford. I want to thank King Ron Hurd and Ekpe and Sister Hurd for bringing me into this. And what I really want to do is encourage Memphians and further beyond Memphians to know about the history of Jimmie Lunceford and all of our musicians that have been spoken of. And it's just so much to learn and to know. And I'm so proud of Ron Hurd that he, it's just in him. He's just giving us much of what we don't really know. And he's always seeking more knowledge and giving it to us. And he's so talented in that and as a musician, as an artist, just so many things that Memphians, our young people and above are, there's so much talent here. Yeah. And Brother Ekpe, I grew up with him at my father's church, the Providence African Methodist Episcopal Church, him and all his brothers and sisters. And it's been an honor to, have been a part of his life. And I don't have a lot to say, but I am so honored to have been selected Queen for 2019. And with the king for that was Brother Philip Joyner, who we miss so very much, an excellent musician
His
here
birthday was
in
not
the
too long
city. And I hadn't known him very long, but I mean, he's just great and grand. I met his sister, I hear so much about his children and his family, his wife. And so that was an honor, even though it was posthumous that he was king with me, it was still a great honor for me. So many, musicians and artists, and we just need to embrace this. We need to come out. I'm inviting you to come out and to know more about your city, the people who have come through, the people who have been born here, and just so much wealth. And in this time, we need to be educating ourselves, educating our children, moving forward from this pandemic and the injustices that have been done toward George Floyd and so many others before him very recently and way back. So we need to be embracing what we have, come together and build upon our own as others are building upon our own and their own. Yeah, we need to come together and, build for ourselves, not allow others to take what we have. And I'm learning, and this is what we all need to do as a group of people, to stretch out and embrace one another and to build upon. You got to know, you have to have a foundation to build. And so we need to begin more and more to learn. There's some that know, but not enough. And so I just appreciate this opportunity to speak to you today. And I want to thank Brother Ron Hurd, and I'm so grateful for Jimmie Lunceford and the work that he did for us and the world.
Thank you. That was humble. So yeah, what time is it? Y'all got time?
Right, it's about 2 minutes to 12. Let's see, lift every voice and sing. Play it till you get ready later. Reach out whenever you're ready.
You mean when they're later,
We'll
lay
sing
it down?
a little bit, and I'll play with you while we land.
Y'all ready?
Lay it down?
Yeah, go.
This is the
No, wait a minute. Don't get off.
the Black National Anthem, written by James Weldon Johnson and his brother Rosamond Johnson. It was written, if I remember correctly, it was written in 1919. So last year was 100 years when that song was written. He wrote it for some school children. And as the history says, it began to spread around. People understood the value of those words, so we're going to do that since as we later read.
No, wait. It's a little more dramatic.
I want to try to kick it out.
They ain't gonna kick you out. You get the out. There's a way to get out of here. You can't. There you can. Okay.
Lift every voice and sing. Black National Anthem. I'm following.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling sea. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of a new day begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
Excellent. Okay. So,
just to let you all know, we've never done that before together.
Oh wow, that's an exclusive. Where else?
We just want to let y'all impromptu.
Mhm.
When you know what you know, you can do what you do.
That's right. Saying what you do is the way that you do it, right?
That's right. Thank you. Thank you.
Let's wrap it up. Yeah, yeah, that's me on there.
Take out how many people show up is what you do.
Well, ain't about, but my head not cut off.
No, your head is not cut off.
Okay, I just want to conclude today's festivities. I want to thank everybody who participated in making this a beautiful occasion for a truly beautiful soul and spirit. Energy never dies. Energy just transfers. And I believe the spirit of Jimmie Lunceford is all around us. The magic of Jimmie Lunceford and who we are as a people is all around us. We are our ancestors. We are our ancestors. And they have returned again. The spirit of the ancestors are here. And we do remember the newly mentioned ancestors, George Floyd, Sister Breonna Taylor. For all y'all doing egg no. Good water right here. Brother Ahmaud Arbery, Brother Tamir Rice, Sandra Bland, Emmett Till, Swerna Chaney Goodman, so many. Malcolm X,
Danny.
Needless to go in and weather. La 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 la.
Oh no.
Yeah, the one
That
from,
wasn't.
what's called Samuel.
Oh, Brother Danny Ray Thompson. Can't forget about him. He on that mothership. So, I mean, the spirit of the ancestors, let it be known that we have the work to do. In the words of Dr. John Henry Clark, we must bury the man and continue to plan. But we need to have a plan first. And we got to remember that the ancestors already laid out the plan for us. The blueprint is here. Just got to acknowledge the blueprint, learn the blueprint, and make it work in these times forevermore. Thank you all. I'm going to play a little number and then we get out of here, take pictures. You want Saints?
Okay, I'm following you.
All right. I don't know you want to follow me. Okay. Yeah, I can take a. I know how to set it where we can take a picture. Yeah.
holiday hits different this year. Hit the right mood with Holiday Hits Radio, only on Pandora.
Okay, family. I hope y'all enjoyed that little thing, me making a fool of myself, but it's all for a good cause. That's our this year's 2020 Jimmie Lunceford Jamboree Festival. Let me know if y'all can hear me. Let me see. Yeah, y'all can hear me. Do my little thing on the technology. But like I said, that's just a little taste. We've been doing that every year since 2017 on a consistent basis. Like I started doing it actually back in 2007. I was inspired to really honor the legacy of Jimmie Lunceford in the city of Good Abode. That's official moniker for Memphis, the city or city of Good Abode. So I want to honor somebody who chose to be buried in Memphis. He wasn't from here. You know, he was born in Fulton, Mississippi, near Tupelo, in a community called Evergreen. Now, he wasn't really born inside Fulton, but he was in a community adjacent to Fulton called Evergreen Community, where his folks own a lot of land. He come from a family of landowners. His family to this day still own land and live in homes in the Evergreen community. So Jimmie Lunceford was interesting. His people own a lot of land down there. But he was, you know, they left with his mom and dad. They moved at first to Oklahoma, but he was raised in Denver, Colorado. And Jimmie was interested because he had, his mom was a gifted church pianist. So he had that in his background. And some people would consider him a prodigy because he could play multiple instruments. He was, well adept at playing many different types of instruments. But his really formal music education came because the Denver public schools were very advanced in terms of their music education. Also, in terms of, I would say, race relations, which is interesting because the school music superintendent of the Denver public schools was a guy named Wilberforce Whiteman. And Whiteman was also the father of Paul Whiteman. These were white men. But Paul Whiteman became known as the king of jazz back in the 20s. He had one of the most successful large jazz orchestras in the country. Did a lot of studio work, was in demand for decades. But he was he a self-proclaimed king of jazz, or did the white media make him the king of jazz? I guess the white media made him the king of jazz, right? He's gonna make jazz out of a lady. I'm gonna tame her and make her a lady. Forget all this whoppy wop 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 wop. Well, make her a lady. Because jazz got an interesting backstory. Du Bois called our gift to America and to the world the sorrow songs, the Negroes' gift of song in America. And jazz came out the fields, out the church, as well as out the brothels, out of the houses of prostitution. You had a place called Storyville that was closed by the Navy during World War I because so many sailors was getting STDs. But also, this is where the jazz was at. People was having sex and they were playing jazz. This was the soundtrack for that era. Jazz was a term that was meant. They talked about. I guess it was related to sex. Some people might have seen this as a derogatory term. Jazz. You have ragtime. They even had a term for music called coon songs. Y'all like to use the word coon, but they used to call black music coon songs. And one of the most famous coon songs of all time was written by a black man named Ernest Hogan. Ernest Hogan from Kentucky. It's called "All Coons Look Alike to Me." Take a look. It's somewhere online. somewhere online. But look up Ernest Hogan. It's a best-selling coon song. And he lost a lot of black friends over it. Maybe because they were jealous he made so much money off the song, or they maybe he's like, he was a sellout. Why would he make a song like that and it be popular? But black folks' pain is white folks' entertainment and profit. The nature of the entertainment business was built off of that. On one podcast, I talked about the great Shakespearean actor from New York, Ira Aldrich, who was born a free person of color in New York City, who performed at the African Grove Theater back in the 1820s, but left. He left for Europe when the so-called European immigrants who could barely speak English started making fun of black folks by wearing the blackface, copying our songs and whatnot, and making fun of us at our expense. He said, "I'm not gonna put on no blackface. I'm not gonna be ridiculous. Let me go to Europe and become one of the greatest Shakespearean actors of all time." This is Ira Aldrich. Look up Ira Aldrich. Very great black man. Great. This is a great human being. But you had Stephen Foster. "Oh, Susanna, oh, don't you cry for me. If I come from Alabama with a banjo on my knee." A banjo is an African instrument. But Stephen Foster made a living out of writing these songs, mimicking black folks. You think about Thomas Daddy Rice, T.D. Rice. He created the character Jim Crow. A white man created this character called Jim Crow. Jump, Jim Crow, jump. Jim Crow became the term for an era in American history. There was American apartheid, post-Civil War, right? Jim Crow. So this was a character that was created by the white man poking fun at the black man. So all of America's entertainment is based off of racist stereotypes and white supremacy. So really, America entertainment is white supremacy. Even if you look at, man, it's so deep here with the music, because you look at somebody like James Joplin, the king of ragtime writers. James Joplin. Who the hell is James? Scott Joplin. Excuse me, y'all. Scott Joplin from Texarkana. That's Scott Joplin. Was the king of ragtime writers, right? But from my understanding, he wrote songs he never got credit for. He wrote an opera even called Tremonisha that he predicted that he would be famous some 50 plus years after his death. And it became true because he died from advanced stage of syphilis. And it wasn't until the movie came out called The Sting with Robert Redford and Paul Newman. Am I got it right? Is it The Sting? And they played his song, The Entertainer. Dun, 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 dun. Y'all know, just look that up, man. Look at Scott Joplin, The Entertainer. And it was the soundtrack for the movie The Sting. I think it was Paul Newman, Robert Redford, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just look that up right now, because I already know how you Negroes get. Brother Ron got it wrong. And also before I looked that up, Sister Deborah Gleese Barnes was not the queen from our 2019 Jimmie Lunceford Jamboree Festival Homecoming Court. She actually was the princess. Now, Carla Thomas, Rufus Thomas' daughter, Carla Thomas from Stax, that legend, the queen of Memphis Soul, she was our queen that year. And also, the late, great Philip Joyner was not the king. He was the prince of that year. He actually died before we was able to do our celebration of him, but he confirmed that he received that honor. So I'm going to honor that man. But he was also the prince that year. But the king that year was Sidney Kirk, great pianist, played with Isaac Hayes' Movement. That's a really true innovative Memphis musician who never got his credit. And so we honor Sidney Kirk as the king last year, as well as Carla Thomas as the queen. But Deborah Gleese Barnes is a queen in her own right, a very regal, beautiful sister. But she was our princess that year. And then Philip Joyner, who passed, was our prince. And also Philip Joyner kind of like in that mode of a Jimmie Lunceford, because Philip Joyner, like Jimmie Lunceford, had his pilot's license. He was able to fly airplanes. And also he was an educator. He was very beloved by his students, educated several schools in the Memphis area in Shelby County. and he will be missed. Died from cancer, and he is greatly missed. But longtime pianist at the Peabody Hotel, the famous Peabody Hotel in Memphis. He told me times back in the 90s when he'd be playing piano in the hotel lobby. Because Philip Jordan, I believe, he was at the Peabody Hotel playing the piano for almost 30 years, if not mistaken. But he would run into somebody like Ike Turner. You know, Ike Turner would tell him stories. I wish he lived long enough to write these books about his encounters with Ike Turner, another misunderstood music genius. And we gotta do a whole show about Ike Turner one day. But tonight won't be that day or the night for that. But like we gotta start telling our stories. Because when Ike Turner tried to get his autobiography out there, he was blackballed. They wouldn't distribute his book, his autobiography, to counter what's love got to do with it and Tina Turner's side. And we all know, you listen to Judge Joe Brown, he talks about the abuse that Ike Turner actually suffered at the hands of Tina Turner and how Tina Turner was a gorilla pimp. You know, see, you know, it's interesting. Like, I know some stories. Y'all know the official stories, but you know, I've been blessed to be able to talk to the people who played with the likes of Al Green or Isaac Hayes or Otis Redding, and they told me things off record about certain situations. And one day I might share some of that insight. But like when my friends, my late great Jagna and good friends, Mr. Emerson Abel Jr. used to tell me, Brother Ron, nobody dies a natural death in show business. Nobody dies a natural death in show business. Let me see, I got it right. Da-da-da-da. Yeah, the Sting. Da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da, da. You know, the Entertainer. That's Scott Joplin's song. So you got Robert Redford and Paul Newman played in that, but they brought a resurgence in the interest of the life and the work of Scott Joplin. So y'all need to look up Scott Joplin, man, because this is what I do. What else y'all gonna hear about some new black media talk about Scott Joplin? You know, I could talk about the Trump thing. I could talk about all this other stuff, but I'm giving you this stuff. Who else talking about Jimmie Lunceford? Who but me? But anyway, the stuff is so deep. But yeah, Irving Berlin, you know, the guy who allegedly wrote "God Bless America," he allegedly he stole some songs from Scott Joplin. See, Fess Waller, it's like we gotta understand. Like we talk about Prince and Sam Cooke, all these guys. Tin Pan Alley was the music industry up in New York. It was called Tin Pan Alley. All these songwriters. See, all these songwriters that we love, that America loves, a lot of them stole their songs from black people. You know, if you read Duke Ellington's autobiography, Music Is My Mistress, he talked about how he wrote this whole like musical in one night. He gave it to a guy for chump change, I believe. The guy took it to Europe and became a multimillionaire off of Duke Ellington's musical and never gave Duke Ellington the proper credit. Just took it. And I know I read stories by Fess Waller, you know, and misbehaving, saving my love. Oh, what did I do to be so black and blue? That Fess Waller, the great Fess Waller. They said Fess Waller used to sell them white dudes the songs, the same songs over and over again. All he did was change the title. But I don't think his estate even owns the right to Ain't Misbehaving and all them great hits he made. I don't think his estate has any rights to those songs. And one of his writing partners was Andy Razoff, who was royalty from the island of Madagascar off the coast of Africa. He came from royalty. It's a black man that came from royalty, came to the States, was a songwriting partner of Fess Waller. So, you know, the music industry was very mobbed up back then. You know, Louis Armstrong had to leave the States because of the white gangs fighting over him in Chicago, New York. Even his own, you know, managers took advantage of Louis Armstrong. And I remember reading something about, like I said, Louis Armstrong's wife was from Memphis, right? But Louis Armstrong was doing a concert, I believe, here back in the early 1930s in Memphis. And he got arrested by the Memphis police because he was sitting next to his manager's wife. I guess him and the band was sitting next to his white woman, his manager's wife. And we had a Jim Crow real bad down south, whatever. So I think they put him in jail. And I believe he did a concert And I'm talking on top of my head. Just something I read and researched, whatever. But I believe the concert was at the Overton Park, where Elvis Presley did one of his first historic concerts. Overton Park. The shell is still there, and he performed a song. Louis Armstrong was interesting. He performed a song. I dedicate this to the Memphis police. I'll be glad when you devil dead, you devil you. I'll be glad when you're dead, you devil you. But then, like, he was able to get away with that by singing one, this song. There's an anthem of the South. When it's sleepy time down south, yeah. See, the white folks love that crap. But it's actually, Louis Armstrong was able to make a lot of songs sound pretty cool. Like, Louis Armstrong is the guy who's your favorite singer. Like, he ain't got the world's greatest voice, but he got the world's greatest voice. You understand? This dude in his early 60s was able to knock out the Beatles in the number one spot back in the 60s. He had the number one song in the country in his 60s. Hello, darling. This is Louis, darling. So he had that. I mean, he did it in his 60s, but it was a sister from Memphis named Lil Hardin that made him who he was. But getting back to Jimmie Lunceford. See, I go all around the world with this stuff because so much information. I got so much information to give and so little time, y'all. But Jimmie Lunceford got his formal music education from Paul Whiteman's father, Wilberforce Whiteman, who ran the music program for the Denver Public Schools. Not only did Paul or Wilberforce Whiteman train Jimmie Lunceford, he trained another guy named Andy Kirk, another popular black swing band leader. I believe Andy Kirk lived to be in his 90s. So unlike Mr. Lunceford, who was taken away from us at 45, he had a very longer, productive life. But both these guys were the students and pupils of Wilberforce Whiteman, along with his own son, who's a very successful jazz band leader. That's pretty impressive. It's like you look at football, the coaching tree. You have Bill Parcells. He had produced the likes of Bill Belichick. He's suffering right now. He should never got rid of Brady, I guess. But Bill Belichick is off that coaching tree, along with a Tom Coughlin. Off that coaching tree, along with a Sean Payton. All of these coaches, came out of Bill Parcells' coaching tree. All of them Hall of Famers, right? Including Bill Parcells. So you look at Wilberforce Whiteman, for him to produce 3 game-changing swing band leaders is impressive. It truly is impressive. I gotta give him his props where props are due. But he was able to see the talent in Jimmie Lunceford and could not be denied. And Jimmie went back down south for his education. He went to Fisk University, which is interesting, in Nashville. And I'm gonna tell you something. Like I told y'all earlier, that Black history is better than science fiction and any Hollywood movie. I'm gonna tell you about this. This in itself could be a movie. This in itself, matter of fact, somebody did a play about this situation called Knock Me a Kiss. And it was written by a brother, I believe he's from Ohio, this playwright. Can't think of his name right now. But the play is called Knock Me a Kiss. It's about a lover's triangle between Jimmie Lunceford, Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, daughter Yolanda Du Bois, or Dubois, whatever y'all call it, and County Cullen, the poet laureate of the Harlem Renaissance. So this was an interesting situation, right? Jimmie Lunceford went to Fisk back in the 1920s. He was truly a tall, dark, and handsome young man. Tall, athletic. He was very gifted in football, baseball, basketball, and track. I say boxing. I'm probably saying, but he was a very gifted athlete and also a gifted musician. So he had a college band, picking up gigs and whatnot, and he fell in love with Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois. I'm calling him Du Bois. I like to have Du Bois' daughter Yolanda. Let me share a screen. I'll show you a picture. Man. So much. I'm still trying to get the hang of this, folks. Just be, I guess, as patient as you can as I figure this stuff out. I mean, look. But yeah, it's so much history, man. Like I said, this pandemic was really a blessing in disguise on a lot of levels. It was hard on a lot of us. It still is hard. We still got to get through it, but it forced a lot of us to really think outside our comfort zone more so, especially artists. Like, this information that I have, I just can't leave the planet without sharing this information with the people. I think it's very important, at least to me, in my mind. I believe the work is very important. It needs to be done. So we're gonna do it. This is how we do it. I'm doing all this stuff. I know I ain't everybody cup of tea, but it is what it is. The universe called, and I answer the call. And it is what it is. And we'll just go from that, right? Why can't we be friends? I don't know if this is the right one. Okay. That's Dr. Du Bois' daughter, Yolanda. I think she was a red bone. Interesting looking girl. She probably had an interesting personality in person. It's like maybe the picture doesn't really do her justice, but that was Jimmie Lunceford's love. I don't know if that was his first love, but he was head over heels in love with Yolanda. And Dr. Du Bois is interesting because Dr. Du Bois, before he went to Harvard University, he went to Fisk University as an undergrad. Dr. Du Bois was born after the Civil War, February 1868, up at Great Barrington, Massachusetts. So he was a Yankee from Massachusetts. But he went to school down south. Was a Fisk man, a very proud Fisk man, and he eventually became the first black person to receive a PhD from Harvard University back in 1895. So that's his daughter. He lost his son down in Atlanta, very young, very tragic thing. So he had a daughter left, but he really wasn't there to raise his daughter like that. He's like Dick Gregory. He's always in demand and on the road, working on his life work, his God work. So he really wasn't at home to raise his daughter. So I think she suffered from not having enough attention while growing up. Because, it's interesting that the men she decided to let into her life, these men. But Jimmie Lunceford was an interesting brother. Like Dr. Du Bois was a proud race man, was a Fisk man. So, brother Jimmy. But that's Yolanda, young Yolanda in her 20s. Show a picture, Jimmy. Thank you all for being patient. And I hope I'm sharing something that could be of service to you all as I share these things. This is a picture of Jimmie Lunceford, like 1 year before he died. I had the blessing to be able to talk to people who actually knew Jimmie Lunceford, who worked with Jimmie Lunceford in his orchestra. Also, I had the pleasure of speaking with Sister Catherine Perry Thomas, a proud graduate of Manassas High class of 1932. She actually passed away maybe about 13 or 12 years ago. Around this time, I think it was late December 2007 when she made her transition as a righteous ancestor. But I had a chance to meet Sister Catherine Perry Thomas in her home before she passed, because she was like one of the first people to receive a Jimmie Lunceford Legacy Award, because she was a long-time educator. But she actually knew Mr. Lunceford when he was teaching at Manassas High School and leading the orchestra. And her brother Andrew Perry, was one of Jimmie Lunceford's students in the band. Ended up turning pro when Jimmie Lunceford left Memphis back in 1930. Yeah, he was a tall, dark, and handsome guy. He was very tall. And the girls were crazy about Jimmy, but he ain't do no R. Kelly stuff. No disrespect to R. Kelly, but I mean, he was very much a gentleman. The people that knew Jimmie Lunceford, they say he never swore or cussed. He didn't smoke or drink. He was just a consummate professional and a gentleman. And what Sister Catherine Perry Thomas told me was that By the time these young guys graduated from high school, because of Jimmie Lunceford, he made them so mature. He was like a master teacher. You thought they were like 25 or 30 years old. They were so matured and disciplined under Jimmie Lunceford. So he was the football coach. So, you know, you can imagine the pep talks he would give. But the band would play professional gigs while these guys was in high school. And y'all talk about A.L., you know, they're talking about indigenous and all this stuff. Y'all, we talking about black people were indigenous to this place. You know, guess what he named the high school band? The semi-pro band he was leading. He called them the Chickasaw Syncopators. See, I said Jimmie Lunceford was from Mississippi. And his folks own a lot of land. They still own the land to this day down there. I've been down there last time I was down there and went to the Evergreen community was like 3 years ago. I talked to one of his descendants whose mom was his first cousin. And you know what the crazy thing about it, his family down there did not know a lot about him because he left when he was young. And you know, he was, you know, but I'm saying you got this famous legend in your family, and he's even a stranger to his own family. Had a chance to talk to his family when they did a blues marker dedicated to Mr. Lunceford down in Fulton, Mississippi, back in 2011. So I did a speech up there, impromptu speech. They were impressed. They said we had no idea that our relative, our ancestor, was this famous and well respected. See, we always waiting for white folks to validate who we are a lot of times. If the white folks ain't talking about Jimmie Lunceford, then why are we talking about Jimmie Lunceford? See, if I was a white person, if I was like, say I was Mick Jagger or name any white person, because, you know, black folks got this thing about white people. If I was any white person talking about this, it might mean more to us because we don't understand who we really are. We don't understand that. And we always looking for validation as a people. But like Baba Dick Gregory said, my truth does not need to be validated by your ignorance. My truth does not need to be validated by your ignorance. But Jimmie Lunceford was amazing. Like I said, he was the most popular. He had the most popular band back in the 30s and 40s for black people. They were known as the Harlem Express because they were so popular among black people. They were the band of choice among black people. His band was more popular than Duke Ellington band among black people, more popular than even Count Basie band among black people because he had a distinctive two-beat sound. No, people talking about Memphis music is interesting. Memphis got a signature sound, but you could make a claim that maybe Mr. Lunceford started that tradition with a distinctive two-beat he had because all the band leaders, especially the white ones, wanted his sound. They wanted that Jimmie Lunceford two-beat. They wanted it. All the white band leaders, the Dorsey brothers, Glenn Miller, they all wanted that sound. And he was known as the king of the battle of the bands because he would consistently whoop everybody's butt. Jimmie Lunceford had one of the most formidable bands of his era because the two-beat sound, just the precision they played with, the showmanship was off the charts. Like I said, Jimmie Lunceford Orchestra was one of the first bands to have tailor-made suits. I mean, they did choreography, they could sing, they could dance, they told jokes. I mean, you had the greatest show in the world before TV. This orchestra was made for TV. But there was no TV. They was known as the Trained Seals because of their discipline and their unique timing. The trumpet section would throw their trumpets up in the air at the same time and then catch them and play where they left off at. That's why they call them the Trained Seals. It was no band like that playing. Count Basie people, great sound. Count Basie was a beast. That sound was amazing. But they didn't do all that. You know, Duke Ellington, amazing. But their bands were not doing that. They were not dancing and singing and doing all that interesting stuff they were doing Jimmie Lunceford's band. And this is why his band was the number one attraction at the Apollo Theater for a whole decade. Number one attraction at Apollo Theater for a whole decade. His band integrated the famous Paramount Theater, which introduced the world to Frank Sinatra back in the 40s. They integrated that place. Sold out. I mean, you have thousands of people dancing to Jimmie Lunceford music around the country at these live shows. So, but if we don't tell these stories, people like Jimmie Lunceford get forgotten about because why? Because his main audience, majority of the audience were black people. Black folks chose Jimmie Lunceford. I choose you. I choose you, Jimmie. We choose you. We love you madly. You know, Jimmie took over as the house band for the Cotton Club after Duke Ellington and Cab Calloway. This was able to him to get that fan base among black people because they left Memphis back in 1930, but they were struggling for 4 years. I mean, think about it. They'll be in Cleveland during a winter storm. They just sharing bologna, cheese, and crackers among them, dreaming for better days. But in 4 years' time, Jimmie made it big by becoming the house band, the Cotton Club. And the house band was doing radio broadcasts. I mean, the Cotton Club was doing radio broadcasts live from the Cotton Club. So they was able to get his name around the country. Jimmie Lunceford was very good at using radio to promote his band. I mean, if Jimmie Lunceford was alive today, he'll be a master at social media. He understood how to use the media like radio to promote his band. Even when he was teaching at Memphis and playing gigs, they knew how to utilize the local radio to promote the band. So by him being at the Cotton Club at the time, it made him a household name among black people, and even white people knew who he was back then. But you know, he had like people like Miles Davis in his autobiography talk about growing up in East St. Louis, rushing home to listen to Jimmie Lunceford broadcast live, the Lunceford Orchestra broadcast live from the Cotton Club, or Horace Silver, or Quincy Jones. They all talk about how this effect of listening to Jimmie Lunceford had on them, on their desires to become musicians or even band leaders themselves. So Jimmie was an amazing person, but I'm getting ahead of myself because there's so much ground to cover. But I've been talking about his relationship with Yolanda Du Bois, right? Now, they were mad in love with each other. He was crazy about her. I mean, Jimmie was crazy about Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois or Du Bois' daughter. But the crazy thing is that Dubois, Dr. Dubois, I'm gonna say because y'all like to say y'all it's funny like first I grew up with him being Dr. Du Bois. But now people say it's Dubois. So they say Dr. Dubois did not approve of Jimmie Lunceford. Even though he was a Fisk man like himself, he didn't like the fact that he was a secular musician, in particular performing jazz music. See, jazz was a rap back then. It was looked down upon. I told you about the origins of jazz came out there's some in this house, there's some in this house. It came out the WAP house. It came out the church and not the fields, but also came out the WAP house. So jazz was like the hip hop or rap of its day. And Dubois, Dr. Dubois, a race man, critical thinker, and bougie. He's bougie. You know, his daughter was bad and bougie, but Dr. Du Bois was just bougie. And so he didn't like Jimmie. He didn't care for him because he's just a secular, he's just a jazz musician. This fatty music is not gonna last, it's not respectable enough. Maybe he was a classical musician, something like that, he would accept him. So what ended up happening is Yolanda ended up got into an arranged marriage situation with County Cullen. Now, County Cullen, let me show a picture of County Cullen. Like I said, man, Black history is amazing. Like y'all don't study our history, y'all missing out. This stuff is crazy. That's County Cullen as an older gentleman. He actually lived that long, to be honest with you, but he was considered the poet laureate of the Harlem Renaissance. He's kind of like he was to Black poetry what Tiger Woods was to golf. You know, County Cullen was the poetry for Black people what Tiger Woods was to golf, or is to golf, rather. But you know, he's very celebrated, very respectable, but also he had the respect and blessing of Dr. Dubois. Dubois. Hey, disrespect the ancestor. I just think it's hilarious. Yeah, how people change the, they want to accent the way his name is. But see, I'm find some county. Okay, I showed that picture of County Cullen, but let me show a younger picture of County. in his 20s or early, I think early 20s, late teens. And I'm trying to get the hang of this, y'all. Let's be patient, please, if you want. So that's County. Interesting dude, very serious young man. But so Dubois arranged for County Cullen, the poet of the Harlem Renaissance, to marry his daughter. It was like the wedding of the century. It was like, Black Love Matters and all that stuff. It was like if they had a reality TV show back then, oh child, oh Lord, the tea that was served that day. It was the wedding, the Black society wedding of the decade. This is the Roaring 20s, right? Harlem Renaissance in full bloom. So this was they're like the Black power couple. It's like this will be like Jay-Z, Beyonce, whoever y'all want to say, Gabby and D Wade or something. I don't know. But it was like one of those type of thing where everybody wanted a ticket. It's like one of the hottest tickets in Harlem, because Dr. Dubois invited 1,200 people, ended up being 3,000 people coming to this event. It's back in 1928, and show some more pictures. Y'all gotta understand, this was a big thing. This woman had like 16 bridesmaids, for this event. Let me show it. I'm setting it up. I'm trying. Oh man, it's so much stuff, man. Now, let me say that was County Cullen. So y'all got a vibe. He got that vibe. Y'all got a certain vibe about him, like where the money resides. Whatever. Where the money resides. He got the type of vibe. He got that vibe. I'm at the food. I need to eat me a dinner. Haven't eaten anything in a minute. So I guess that's a good thing. But yeah. This is Yolanda with her bridesmaids. Let me upgrade you. She had 16. She in the middle. Red Bone Brigade. Now she got some brown sisters, some chocolate brown sugars, some good looking women in that picture. You know what the crazy thing it is? You think about they all dead. But they gotta be all dead, just about. But yeah, she had like 16 bridesmaids in that picture. And she had a maid of honor and a flower girl. So I guess it's 18 people besides herself in this picture. Let me count. But I just want to look at these beautiful women, man. We have some gorgeous women, man. Now, this was the standard back in the day. Think about what's going on. Look at OnlyFans or people like, just like what happened, Black women? Where are we at? 6, 7, 8. Yeah. And it's gorgeous. And she in the middle, right? The bride to be. But she didn't. Her love was Jimmie Lunceford, but her father did not approve. She really wanted Jimmie, and Jimmie definitely wanted her. But it wasn't to be. That's sad, But it is what it is. But the boys had it all figured out because he believed in bloodlines matter, right? You got this very talented, brilliant wordsmith, this poet laureate of the Harlem Renaissance, County Cullen, this rising superstar. Then Yolanda, she comes from Black royalty. Her daddy is the preeminent Black scholar. The father, Du Bois was the father of American sociology. He was not just a brilliant Black professor or scholar. He was just a brilliant mind. And I know people got problems with him in terms of his politics and his situation with Garvey. It is what it is, man. I'm gonna give him his props that he was a Pan-Africanist. He was very influential in the Pan-African movement. I mean, he died in Ghana. He was a Jegna to Kwame Nkrumah, who was the leader of independent Ghana, who was ousted from his government by the CIA. CIA so dirty. That's why Trump got to defund him. But anyway, Du Bois had made a lot of contributions to Black empowerment, and I believe in his old age, he saw the error of his youthful ways. When he was a younger man, he saw the errors of his ways as an older and wiser man. But he forced this marriage upon his daughter, and it didn't work out. And I'm gonna tell you why. But let me show another picture of her from that day. Let me upgrade you. See, we gotta talk about our history, man. This stuff is why I said like the way I'm doing it, like if something ever happened to me and something one day will happen to me, we all got to go. But people should be able to access the archives wherever they may be. You know, can't trust YouTube. YouTube is weird. But I've been trying my best to save and back up all this information I put out to the people so it could still be of use someday to somebody who's not even born yet, or who might be a child now, or might be in somebody's womb right now. But you just don't know who you are affecting in the future with your God work or anything. That's why you got to be very aware and conscious as much as you can about the things that you do and invest your energy and time and space in. So yeah, I want to be a more of a service than a hindrance to anybody. Even my own messed up way, I don't want to get in anybody else's way of learning about who they are and who we are and what we can be as a people. Now I'm trying to find this picture. I'm trying to do right by you all. Look at my screen. But yeah, well, 14 days of this, y'all. Y'all got, 14 days of this information about us, about this great man who should be better remembered. That's Jimmie Lunceford. And I want to thank you all for being patient as I find what I'm trying to look for. I got so many screens open, man. It's ridiculous. Okay. There you go. There you go, beautiful woman. Ancestor. There you go. Let me find you. It's a lot going on. That's Yolanda, but that's not the picture I want to show. But we'll see. Okay, but it's next to the picture I want to show, which is interesting. There's a lot going on, people. And I said a lot of things that we worry about, we shouldn't worry about. You should focus on things you could do something about. Like, certain things going on right now. It's not our fight right now. But the time is coming when we got to take a stand. But you got to know what you're standing on at the same time. Things off. Okay, that's me. I don't want to share that right now. At the Old Daisy Theater, at the Jimmie Lunceford Jamboree Festival Homecoming Court back in 2017. Outside the Old Daisy. Did I say New Day? I said Old Daisy. They're trying to find this stuff. I'm trying to. But anyway, the wedding was in 1928. County Cullen and Yolanda Dubois or Dubois. I'm determined. I see it now. Having some weird issues about how to get the stuff. Okay. Yeah, show that beautiful, beautiful picture, beautiful black women. Okay, I see you now. Oh, okay. I want to show this picture because she's like she's happy. I don't know, man. She's like she's kind of happy. Yeah, she happy right there. No doubt. Close that picture out. The more screens I get rid of, the more better. Yeah, Clyde McKay. I mean, a lot of them guys, But you know what the funny thing about it is? Like Dr. Short brought it up in one of his excellent podcasts. Y'all should check out Dr. Randy Short at Randy Short on YouTube. That in order to make it in the Harlem Renaissance, a lot of those artists were patronized by white people, by wealthy to do whites. Like it really wasn't black folks that were commissioning these artists. It was white people, and you had to play that sex game. You know what I'm saying? It's a price you pay with white patronage. It's like when people talking about. I remember I had a friend and she a college classmate that I respected. She wanted to be a movie director in Hollywood. Now you got to think about this is years ago, before all this Me Too and Times Up stuff. Even though she had like a lot of great connections from her family, she came from a family of very prominent people in terms of media. I mean, she was a black woman, well traveled, went to high school in Africa of all places. She's from here, but she said, Ron, I had to leave Hollywood because every time I try to get my foot in the door with my resume, even though I had the connections and whatnot, people kept on wanting to sleep with me. Like they didn't really want to look at me as a talent and all this. They want me to sleep with them. And I said, enough is enough. And she left and went back east, got a PhD in media studies. Now she's a professor, doing pretty well for herself. But she made a choice not to get on that casting couch, as they say. But a lot of folks decide to do that casting couch BS, and then they suffer from it because they use you up and then they discard you. That's the nature of the beast. It's nothing personal, just business. It's like they use you up, like they just ground you out and just kill your dreams slowly, just ground you up and spit you back out. So she didn't want to be one of those statistics. So I think she made the best decision, and she's been helping a lot of students since then. And she's been very productive. No looking back, right? So that's something to think about. That's her in college, right? That's she's like kind of like got a worried look. I guess what does the life holds in store for her, right? She ended up becoming an educator. She was an English teacher in Baltimore for a number of years in the Baltimore public schools, I believe. She taught English. She so she did a productive life. She was an educator. Like Mr. Lunceford started out as an educator, right? There's okay. I've been looking at this thing. It's overdoing it, but that's the picture I want y'all to see. Beautiful on her wedding day. She got some silk stockings on. She got that bouquet. She always had this interesting look on her face. Like she was maybe she got anxieties or something. I guess she would have anxiety because she don't really know the guy like that. I don't know if she's really attracted to the guy. Like she wanted Jimmie Lunceford, but this guy's like the dude that her daddy wanted her to marry. And it's really like she's a pawn in her daddy's game, right? So she might have a reason to look apprehensive, as I tell you the reason why, right? So, and I think County Cullen had like 9 groomsmen. So it was a big wedding. Like I said, 3,000 people came out, even though 1,200 were invited. I'm going to read something. Harlem had a sort of royal wedding during the Renaissance years when famous poet County Cullen married the daughter of W.E.B. Du Bois in 1928 at the Salem Methodist Church. Accounts have it that Yolanda Du Bois had a total of 16 bridesmaids. County Cullen's party was pretty substantial in itself with 9 groomsmen altogether, and also included poet Langston Hughes. One account has it that 1,200 guests were invited, but 3,000 people eventually showed up, along with a huge public that waited out in front of the church to get a glimpse of the newlywed couple. 2 years later, the ideal marriage of Harlem society would end in divorce because Cullen presumably spent a little too much time with his best man, Harold Jackman. Oh, yeah, the best man. And his best friend. This dude ran away with his best man to Paris. I can't make this up, y'all. This dude left his wife for his best man, Harold Jackman, a legend in his own right. This guy was a model. He also was an educator, a long-time educator. And he also had the moniker. He was known as the finest man in Harlem. He was known as the finest man in Harlem. That's Harold Jackman. I cannot make this up. So she divorced this man, ended up marrying a guy who was a football player, and he left her, but he impregnated Yolanda with a daughter. So she was not lucky in love at all. She got married twice and got left twice. But she was able to have a daughter, continue that bloodline, and it is what it is. She actually passed away back in March of 1961, a little bit over 2 years before her father passed away in Ghana. And she's buried at the family plot up in Massachusetts next to her mom. You know, Dr. Du Bois, he remarried later on, and he's buried in Ghana with his second wife. So I had to share this story. But who is Harold Jackman? Is he the finest man in Harlem? Is he the finest man in Harlem? I'll let y'all be the judge, okay? And I'll look him up for y'all, and y'all let me know what y'all think. Man, I love our history, man. Langston was a batty man. Okay. Langston was a batty man. Broke my heart when I found out. A lot of them guys were gay. A lot of them Harlem Renaissance guys and girls were gay. Like I said, it was like, you know, they patrons of white people. You know, them wealthy white folks into kinky sex and all types of, you know, stuff. You talk about Jeffrey Epstein. Think about what they were doing back in the day with no social media around, with no accountability. Think about all the stuff they had to do just to get paid. And Langston never came out, but it's assumed. So I don't know. And I'm not being naive about it, but Langston never made a big deal about his sexuality. And Langston is interesting because he was one of the first black writers to actually make a living off of his writing. He had a career where he actually was able to make some type of living off his writing. And that's extraordinary in itself. And, you know, him and Dr. Zora Neale Hurston were really close until that incident when they friendship got broken over at the Mule Bone. Are y'all familiar with the Mule Bone story? Like Mule Bone, that story where they wrote this play together, and Langston introduced Zora Neale Hurston to his white lady patron, and somehow Zora Neale Hurston undermining Langston with the patron, I believe, and they had a falling out. But years later, when Zora Neale Hurston was, you know, struggling to make it. See, I call Dr. Zora Neale Hurston. She was actually an anthropologist. No, she used to go down south. She's from Florida, Eatonville, I believe, Eatonville, Florida, all black town, and she was a Republican. So she didn't know. I mean, she had confidence come from an all black town. She was not an inferior intellect. She was very brilliant. Like I said, she was an anthropologist. She also did a lot of stuff where she go back home and go back to the South and interview local black folks to get their dialect. Now, she was doing things in her literature work that white folks thought, you know, oh, they thought she was, you know, it's like a double standard. It's like, it's okay when white folks do dialect and all this stuff. Like, you know, Mark Twain's a genius. James Joyce is a genius. But when Paul Laurence Dunbar and Dr. Zora Neale Hurston does it, it's something wrong. Black folks got inferior intellect. Something wrong with us. Now they were doing it for effect, and also with Dr. Zora Neale Hurston, like I said, she was an anthropologist. She was doing it for authenticity of the people that she studied, out of respect for people that she studied. You know, and Paul Laurence Dunbar went to high school with the Wright brothers, and I don't think the Wright brothers, yeah, them guys that so-called invented the airplane, they went to school with Paul Laurence Dunbar in Ohio, and Paul Laurence Dunbar actually graduated from high school. I don't think either of the Wright brothers graduated from high school. That's something I can look up. Orville and Wilbur Wright. You were white men that went to high school with Paul Laurence Dunbar. You know, Dunbar High School in D.C. is named after him. Dunbar High School back in the day was one of the top. I mean, it was like one of the most prestigious high schools in the country during Jim Crow era. Some of the best some of the best schools in the country were black. Like Manassas High School was like a great school to go to during the Jim Crow era, where Jimmie Lunceford started off as a started his band. So yeah, also Wallace Thurman, Fire. He did that magazine during the Harlem Renaissance. He was the editor called Fire. He was from Utah. Wallace Thurman, they say he was gay. He was married. So you had the DL stuff. You had women acting as beards back then during the Harlem Renaissance. So a lot of people, so it don't, but Langston Hughes was a race man. Y'all need to read some of Langston Hughes' great work. He did a character called Jesse B. Simple. I think they got an anthology of those Jesse B. Simple stories he used to do in the newspaper. Like it'd be like, I guess, short stories or something like that. And Jesse B. Simple would be hanging out in the bar. He's an everyman, but he got a lot of common sense. And I love reading those Jesse B. Simple stories from some years ago. I had got a book with a collection of the Jesse B. Simple stories. And then Langston Hughes was an interesting guy because he was a big fan of jazz. I had the chance to talk to Randy Weston, a jazz great legend who passed away 2 years ago, around the same time as Aretha Franklin. I think he died over the Labor Day weekend of 2018. Because I had some type of premonition. He was on my mind on that Friday of Labor Day weekend. And I think he passed away either that Friday or sometime that weekend. See, he was on my mind because I had a chance to meet Randy Weston a couple years back in New York. Went to one of his concerts at NYU. He did a tribute to James Reese Europe. Anybody who knows me knows I wrote a book. My first book I wrote was about James Reese Europe, the great jazz pioneer and World War I hero. But we were both fans of this man's work. So I had a chance to connect with Randy Weston that night. And then he invited me to his Brooklyn Brownstone where I interviewed him for the upcoming Jimmie Lunceford documentary that I will have out in 2021. I don't know what's going to happen, so I'm going to get it out as soon as I can. But it's several people that have passed away that I interviewed for the documentary, including James Heath this year, the great James Heath Littlebird, and we'll talk about him during the Jimmie Lunceford celebration week, 14-day celebration. But in his will, when Langston Hughes died, he had Randy Weston play his funeral. He had it in his will that Randy Weston would play his funeral. And Randy did. And Randy Weston probably the only person in history who had at his jagnas both Langston Hughes and Thelonious Monk. So Randy Weston had Langston Hughes and Thelonious Monk. Yes, Thelonious Spear Monk as his jagnas. Man, that's an interesting life. And Randy Weston lived to be almost 100 years old. So I miss that brother. But we'll talk about Randy Weston soon as well, too. Yeah, he wrote for his audience. So who was his patrons? And think about who were the biggest patrons of the Harlem Renaissance, right? It was white people that were patrons of Langston Hughes and Dr. Zora Neale Hurston and all the rest of them. The white folks, like Carl Van Vechten, right? Yeah, Langston Hughes is a brilliant writer. And he knew how to keep it simple. He didn't make it too complex. And I always tell people, simple does not mean easy. Simple just means like, okay, but easy, like, look, the way Miles Davis played was simple, but it's not easy to do. That's years of experience. Then this is a brilliant man, and he was complex and complicated and difficult, like most brilliant people are. But it takes years of experience and all that and practice to get that certain type of nuance in Miles Davis's sound that a lot of folks take for granted because it's so mainstream now. To me, Miles Davis was like the Picasso of jazz. You know what I'm saying? He has so many different moods and periods, brilliant. And a Gemini like Jimmie Lunceford. But yeah, that put Harold Jackman was the love of County Cullen's life. And let me put up Harold Jackman. Was he the finest man in Harlem? This is Harold Jackman, the finest man in Harlem. Distinguished guy, dapper. County Cullen's lover that he chose over his wife. The finest man in Harlem, as they say. Very educated man, brilliant mind. I believe he was an English teacher up in New York. But this is the finest man in Harlem right here. Harold Jackman, County Cullen's lover. His best man he ran away with Paris. He ran away to Paris with over his wife. I believe Yolanda them got divorced. She sued for divorce or something like that in 1930. But her father set up with this man. But Jimmie Lunceford was a man's man. No disrespect to these brothers, but Jimmie Lunceford definitely was an alpha hetero male. And I remember reading something where it said Jimmie Lunceford met Yolanda and her daughter backstage after one of his concerts or gigs. And it was Yolanda's daughter that said that he started crying and said, "This should have been my daughter. This should have been my daughter." So Jimmie Lunceford ended up marrying somebody else, but he never forgot about Yolanda. That was the love of his life that got away. So this is Harold Jackman, the finest man in Harlem. I ain't saying that. That's what they said. But he was a distinguished gentleman. He was a muse for a lot of Harlem Renaissance artists. Yeah, Harold Jackman. Yeah, but him and County was very, very close. They were very, very close. So I'm going to share some information with you all about Mr. Jackman. And then I guess I close out this night because I could go on and on about Mr. Lunceford. I just want to put that out there. I think it's fascinating, man. Life is interesting. Okay. So I said, I can't use this file. It ain't free. But Harold Jackman, Sunrise, August 18th, 1901. Okay. Yeah, Sunrise, August 18th, 1901. Sunset, July 8th, 1961. Was a British-born teacher, model, and patron of the arts with emphasis on Black art and literature. Raised in Harlem, Jackman was known for his involvement in the Harlem Renaissance and his dedication to preserving African American cultural artifacts. He founded the County Cullen Memorial Collection at Atlanta University. Okay, he found the collection in the right place, and contributed to the James Weldon Johnson Collection of Yale University, the Literary Collection of Fisk University, and to the Schomburg Collection at the Harlem branch of the New York Public Library. That's the New York Public Library. He was also a co-founder of the Harlem Experimental Theater. Jackman was born in London to a West Indian mother, Maud Jackman, and an unidentified father, like I said, on August 18th, 1901. As a child, his family moved to Harlem, New York. He attended the all-boys DeWitt Clinton High School in the Bronx. There he met County Cullen, who became his lifelong friend, and shall we say more. Jackman earned his bachelor's degree from New York University in 1923 and his master's degree from Columbia University in 1927. He went on to teach social studies for 30 years in the New York public school system. So he's a social studies teacher. My bad. Jackman was a supporter and promoter of African American theater. He was a founding member of the Krigwa Players Little Negro Theater in 1926. He directed Georgia Douglas Johnson's Plumes for the company in 1929. He also helped establish the Harlem Experimental Theater in 1929 and was a member of the American Theater Wing Stage Door Canteen in the 1940s. For over 3 decades, Jackman worked as a model, most notably for Ophelia's Divorce, the Grace Del Marco agency. He was featured in Renaud Reese drawing A College Lad. Jackman was the model for Carl Van Vechten, protagonist in Nigger Heaven, the book from 1926. He also emerges as a character in Wallace Thurman's Inference of the Spring. I talked about Wallace Thurman. That was a black dude from Utah. He died young, but they say he was gay. But he was married at one point. His wife was his beard. And Carl Van Vechten was a white dude. All them photos of some icons from that era. Like, y'all know, let's Google Carl Van Vechten. He did a lot of those photographs of some of my black icons. Very distinctive style, right? Little white guy. Jackman was a member of the Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity, the Urban League, and the Negroes Out There Guild, which he served as executive board. Jackman was an associate editor of New Challenge magazine from 1935 to 37. He was also a contributing editor to Phylon from 1944 to 56 and an advisory editor from 1957 to 61. He was a collector of African American memorabilia and black cultural artifacts. So he really, let me see, his diaries and collections of have been used as a resource for writers and historians. His collections are held in depositories across the country, including the Amistad Research Center at Tulane University in New Orleans, and like I said, Atlanta University in Georgia. Jackman was part of Harlem's gay community and frequented the Hamilton Lodge Ball, an annual masquerade which attracted thousands of costumed men and women dressed in drag. Jackman was a well-known bachelor throughout his life. He frequently escorted single women and was usually king of the Urban League's Beaux Arts Ball. Jackman spent periods in Europe, particularly in Paris, where he met expatriate writer Edouard Roditi. He was known for being social and mingled with various prominent figures of the Harlem Renaissance, such as Langston Hughes, Carl Van Vechten, Wallace Thurman, Claude McKay, and County Cullen. Now I'm going to read this part. I'm going to shut it down. Jackman was best known for his friendship with poet County Cullen, who he met in high school. So, I mean, close friendship, huh? Okay. Whatever y'all want to say. So let's show some of these pictures. This the finest. It's called Van Vetten's work right here. That's the finest man in Harlem. Close friendship with oh boy. Shut it down. And also, let me show picture of County Cullen. I mean, did y'all know about this guy? I knew about this for several years. You know the famous song "Lover Man" that I love by Billie Holiday. That was written by a gay black man. And then also you look at our history. See, people always talk about black people are very homophobic, especially in jazz. People talk about that. But one of the greatest jazz piano players and ragtime players of all time was a guy from New Orleans named Tony Jackson. And Tony Jackson, like you talk to people like Sidney Bechet, you were some macho dudes, right? Sidney Bechet got to a shootout over in Europe from a guy from Chicago over some chord changes, supposedly. And also you had Jelly Roll Morton, who used to play piano down in the brothels in Storyville, who said he invented jazz, like how Little Richard used to say he invented rock and roll. But like Little Richard, Jelly Roll Morton had those receipts. But both of these guys, especially Jelly Roll Morton, he said that the greatest piano player out of New Orleans was Tony Jackson. This guy was interesting. Tony Jackson had a photographic memory. He memorized over 2,000 songs, they say. He could play songs in any genre of music, folk songs, blue operettas, anything. He could play it. He could play it from memory. And I told y'all earlier about how a lot of these white artists and songwriters would steal these songs from black people. There are probably songs in the so-called American Songbook. And what I mean by the American Songbook, these are the standards, like, Night and Day. It's certain songs that you should know is part of that repertoire. Like, you think about writers like Cole Porter, people like that, Hoagie Carmichael, these white guys. I talk about Fess Waller. He wrote songs that should be considered part of the American Songbook. But a lot of these songs that are credited probably to white songwriters, they probably got it from Tony Jackson. Because he was so prolific, but he don't get a lot of credit for the songs he wrote. And Tony Jackson actually wrote a very popular song called Pretty Baby. And it was dedicated to his male lover. Pretty Baby is a very popular song in the American Songbook. And I gotta do something on Tony Jackson. He died young. He died up in Chicago. He was like either in his late 30s or early 40s. But he died either like in late 19 teens or about 1920. He was dead, right? But they did a movie starring Brooke Shields as a teenage prostitute in New Orleans. I believe it's called Pretty Baby, and I think Antonio Fargas played a character based on Tony Jackson. You know, Antonio Fargas, Huggy Bear, is a Huggy Bear from Starsky and Hutch. That Antonio Fargas, I'm going to get you, sucker. We had those fish in his heel of his shoe, in his glass heel, and he busted his shoe. He get, he was in jail for a long time, and the styles changed. You know that classic saying from "I'm going to get you, sucker." I met Antonio Fargas a couple of times when I was in college. He did some work with the St. Louis Black Rep Theater in St. Louis, and he was a cool brother, man. He's a very approachable dude, and he had a good vibe about him. But look up Tony Jackson, y'all. Piano player for New Orleans. But he was openly gay, and the brothers, they respected him because he had talent. Just like a lot of choir directors in the black church. I ain't gonna say a lot, but you come across one of them choir directors that's like, flaming like some Fritos, like some Cheetos, flaming hot Cheetos. But people respect them because they had the talent. They had the talent. So Tony Jackson, another one of them cats. So I could go on and on. People say, man, what's the point, man? You got all this stuff you're talking about. That's County Cullen right there, right? As an older, he didn't live that long. He died young. He died in the 1940s. And but Jackman lived to 1961, I believe it said. But about Jackman, he knew his role. Like he was there to document and tell the story. You know what I'm saying? He knew his role. He was a model, he was a part of the scene, but also he was documenting the scene for posterity. So I gotta give that ancestor his due. He documented that scene from my point of view. So I give him props for that. So like I'm just telling this history here. There's gonna be a lot of things we're gonna talk about these upcoming days. Y'all gonna say, man, I didn't even know about that. Like Brother Ron, all this stuff he talking about, I never heard this stuff or this person before. Let me look into this stuff. Y'all should. And I'm sharing this stuff because I don't know. Because I gotta share it before I go. I don't want to leave all this stuff unturned. I think get rid of that. Show this screen. So I think that's County Cullen in high school. So him and Harold Jackman were very close friends from high school, right? Let me finish reading that. Jackman was best known for his friendship with poet County Cullen, who he met in high school. They were called the Jonathan and David of the Harlem Renaissance because of their close friendship. Cullen dedicated his famous poem, Heritage, to Jackman. Jackman introduced Cullen to his first wife, Yolanda Dubois, daughter of W.E.B. Du Bois, and was the best man at their wedding in 1928. 2 months after the wedding, Jackman and Cullen traveled together to Europe without the bride, which has led scholars to surmise that they were lovers. Oh, these scholars should not be scholars. I mean, that's quite evident that they were lovers. You know what I'm saying? They were known as the Jonathan and David of the Harlem Renaissance because of their close friendship since high school. Cullen dedicated his famous poem Heritage to Jackman. So Yolanda was his beard, or she was duped. Her father probably be this very smart, bright man, could not see that his son-in-law was a gay man. And he arranged his marriage to his daughter, who was in love with Jimmie Lunceford. When Cullen died in 1946, Cullen didn't live, he didn't even make it to 50. Jackman requested that the Georgia accumulation of artifacts be renamed from the Harold Jackman Collection to the County Cullen Memorial Collection in his honor. That should tell you right there they were lovers. That right there. And after Jackman died, the collection was changed to the Cullen Jackman Collection. He loved that man. Just like I told you about Tony Jackson's most famous song was Pretty Baby, dedicated to his male lover. Now, the white folks messed with the lyrics over the years, but it is what it is. But Tony Jackman, they say he was the best piano player that came out of New Orleans, during that ragtime early jazz era. It's like Jello Morton saying that. And Jello Morton was throwing down, man. I remember like 21 years ago, they discovered stuff that Jello Morton did. They were like was the it's like it was telling it was like he was John the Baptist. Like he actually saw bebop coming 20 years later. But he did this stuff back in the 1920s. Like they discovered it like back in 99 or something like that. I remember reading an article about that when I was in college, that they discovered some stuff that they didn't know he wrote that was ahead of his time. But then it always like that for black people to be brilliant. Think about to be Dr. W.E.B. Du Bois, to be the father of American sociology, to be this brilliant man, but you're not even good enough to teach at Harvard. You're the first black person to receive a PhD from Harvard University. He spent most of his time teaching at HBCUs, and they didn't really appreciate Dr. Du Bois. You know, he was constantly moving around, teaching at these schools. They didn't really appreciate the man. So it's like Fletcher Henderson basically invented jazz orchestra back in the 20s. He invented the jazz orchestra, but he didn't get the due that he deserved. And it took Benny Goodman, a white Jewish guy from Chicago, hiring Fletcher Henderson as his arranger. He used the stuff that Fletcher Henderson did back in the 20s to become the king of the swing, the so-called king of swing back in the 30s and 40s. See, black people, we were always ahead. It's like mainstream society is like 20 years or 15 years behind us in terms of the culture. Like when white folks were focused on rock and roll, we was already on rap. You see what I'm saying? Like they focus on cakewalking, we always doing jazz. They just not getting hip to ragtime. We doing jazz, And also Jimmie Lunceford, he was credited with being the first person in the world to teach jazz studies in a formal educational setting. Okay, let me read this part. Jackman died in the main hospital on July 8th, 1961. He was survived by a brother, Bertram Jackman, and sister, Ivy Jackman. His estate was estimated at $40,000, which would be $342,227 in 2019 dollars. At the time of his death, listed as beneficiaries, were his sister, Ivy Jackman, and his friend, Mrs. Diana Jean Shaw. So that's County Cullen. So that was his biggest, not only his lover, but his biggest supporter, Harold Jackman. So yeah, but I'm not knocking that. I'm not here to criticize the dead or make fun or mock. I'm just letting y'all know this ain't nothing new under the sun. So yeah. So I just thought that was interesting because I wonder how his life would have ended if Jimmie Lunceford married Yolanda Dubois or Dubois. If he married Dubois. Thank y'all for checking in and hanging out, man. Yeah, I love Miles Davis and Charlie Parker. You know, this year is the centennial celebration of Charlie Parker, and we don't really appreciate our real ones. You know what I'm saying? Charlie Parker was an interesting guy. He only lived to be 34 years young, but his father's from Memphis. I understand by way of Clarksdale, Mississippi. I did tell you how the greatness of Clarksdale, Mississippi, all them great musicians. It's something about the South, man, about the Southland. Yeah, you talk about New York and Chicago, Detroit and L.A., all these places, but all that music is rooted down South. If you name me any spot, it's cats from down South that made that scene what it was back in the day. You look at Chicago, those cats came from down South. They came from New Orleans and Memphis and places down South, Alabama, places like that. And I'm going to spend a lot of time doing this Jimmie Lunceford celebration this year. We're going to dig deep into that stuff. I'm going to do the other stuff y'all like too. I'm going to do the other stuff that black folks like, but I want to make this mainstream for us. Y'all, I want people that I know that's black know Jimmie Lunceford like we know LeBron James. I know that's gonna be a miracle, but but it's 2020, and we don't know what 2021 got for us, But I'm gonna close it out. So y'all learned something new today. We're gonna talk more about Mr. Lunceford. He was an amazing man. He was amazing because He actually owned and flew his own airplanes. Like he took flying lessons back in 1939. He brought his airplane, his first airplane, back in 1940 for $20,000 back then, which would be over $300,000 today. When he brought that airplane, he used to fly the gigs in his airplane. He even crashed his airplane, I believe, once or twice, and was able to walk away from it. Man was interesting, man. He loved motorcycles. He used to drive motorcycles and everything. Fascinating black man. And what I love about him is that he thought about the community. He believed in the village concept, and he actually, will start music education programs throughout the country to keep black kids out of trouble with the law. He thought that music was a way to not only keep people entertained, but also organize the community around and instill discipline. He saw it as a rites of passage. Like I said earlier, Catherine Perry Thomas, our ancestor, our righteous ancestor, said that by the time those guys would graduate from high school, whatever, they were like grown men because they went under Jimmie Lunceford, because Jimmie Lunceford was a man. He was a man, a man's man. So this is why I'm doing what I'm doing on my platform, to honor this man, because I want us to understand what black manhood looks like. It looks like James Melvin Lunceford. He created a great blueprint from that. I don't want to belabor the point here, but I think it's very important that he believed in giving back. And also, by the time he died, he was looking for real estate somewhere in the country to start a retirement community for black musicians. So this man was thinking about the kids, and also he was thinking about the old people. He loved black people. He could have lived anywhere in the country, but he chose to live among black people, whether it be in Harlem or in White Plains, New York. He lived in the same neighborhood as the famous tap dancing Nicholas brothers and Atom Clayton Powell Jr., our greatest politician we ever produced, that was sent to Washington, D.C. Adam Clayton Powell Jr., the Right Reverend Adam Clayton Powell Jr., head of Abyssinia, Greater Abyssinia Baptist Church up in Harlem. I think it's now, we got Calvin Butts. Does Reverend Calvin Butts compare to Atom Clayton Powell Jr.? No, he does not. Not too many people do. But I think I gave y'all enough for tonight. And trying to set that bar high for what's to come over the next I guess 13 days now. And I gotta do another show later on today, or put out some content to keep it going. But we'll help people on here talk about the music and all that stuff. But I hope I ain't bored too many of y'all. Yeah, he was the first to teach it. He's credited with being the first. Think about that in the whole world. It's like if a person was teaching rap in class, right? That's what he was doing. Because jazz was the popular music of that era. Think about especially in the 30s and stuff with the swing era. So yeah, he was credited with being the first. And Memphis is a jazz town. Like I said, Charlie Parker Daddy is from Memphis. Louis Armstrong's second wife that made him a superstar is from Memphis. Some of the great, oh my God, Mary Lou Williams lived in Memphis at one point. This woman is the godmother or the mother of bebop. It was at her apartment in New York that a lot of the jazz greats like Charlie Parker and Thelonious Monk and Dizzy Gillespie and Charlie Christian will work out the ideas about the new music coming called bebop. So she really was the mother or godmother of that, and she's from Atlanta originally, but she grew up in Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is another great jazz town. There's a lot of great giants of jazz that came out of Pittsburgh. So, I mean, we need to start talking about this stuff. This is our heritage. Y'all tell me y'all ADOS, excuse me, FBA. Yeah, but if you don't know what the indigenous music is, the history of that, it's fantastic. Even Jimmie Lunceford, like I said, his first band, he called the Chickasaw Syncopators. Jimmie Lunceford understood who he was. He understood who he was. And he was proud to share that with his people, with the gift of music. But if you think about Louis Armstrong, I'm gonna just close it out on this because there's so much stuff to talk about. And I don't want to bore y'all. I know it's kind of overwhelming, but I sit with this stuff all day in my mind. And I've been studying this stuff for years. But everywhere Louis Armstrong went, he ran into Memphis folks that made him a better musician. Like I said, his wife was playing for his Jegna, King Oliver in Chicago. She discovered his greatness and forced him to quit King Oliver's band because King Oliver told her one day, because she was not impressed with Lewis. She was actually married at the time. Lewis was married to his first wife, this prostitute named Daisy Parker. When she used to get mad at Louis Armstrong, she would throw bricks at his head or try to hit his head with bricks. So, and Lil was married. Lil actually went, I believe she went to Fisk University at one point. So she was a very sophisticated lady. She was the pianist for King Oliver. And she was not impressed with Lewis because he said the first time he saw Lewis, like King Oliver said, "Oh, hey, Louis, little Louis coming up from New Orleans." And she saw Louis Armstrong, clothes were too tight, had bangs in his head. That little, ain't nothing little about him. But then she started hearing him play and started seeing people responses to him playing. And she's okay, he might be having something worth having. And King Oliver allegedly told her. She didn't tell Lewis about this till years after King Oliver passed on, became an ancestor star. King Oliver told Lil, Lewis a better trumpet or horn player than me, but he'll never be greater than me because he lacks the confidence to stand on his own. He'll always be second fiddle to King Oliver. So you got to think about when he's saying that Louis Armstrong is the second horn. Like they were playing cornets on that. I play a cornet, but cornet is like a cousin of the trumpet, right? They have a different sound. But when Lewis and them would record, Lewis had to stand like 20 feet behind everybody else because his trumpet or cornet was so demanding. Lewis had a very distinctive, you could tell when Louis Armstrong is playing on a record or whatever, nobody sounds like that. People get close to it, but Lewis had a unique sound because he wasn't just playing a horn, he was playing his spiritual essence. Like with jazz, I love about jazz because everybody can play the same instrument, but everybody sound like different because they're playing their soul. They're bearing their soul. It's not that they're playing notes or chords and all that. They're playing themselves. They're signing their signature. Their sound is the signature of who they are. So when you got tenor saxophone players, I could tell the difference between Lester Young and Dexter Gordon and John Coltrane, Sonny Rollins, Coleman Hawkins. They all played the same instrument, but they sound totally different on the instrument because it's not about like getting the notes right. It's about playing you. It's your life. It's your experience. You're telling a story. It's storytelling in your own words. You reclaim the narrative with your sound. So she forced Louis Armstrong to leave King Oliver's band, sent him to New York to Fletcher Henderson, who is basically the father of jazz orchestra. At the Roseland Ballroom, Louis Armstrong came up there and changed the game. But you know who was the top trumpet player up in New York before Louis came? A guy named Johnny Dunn. Guess where he was from? He was from Memphis. He used to play for W.C. Handy Band. And Louis Armstrong was very popular at the Vendome Theater, playing with the Erskine Tate Orchestra in Chicago. And guess where Erskine Tate was from? It's from Memphis. He used to play for W.C. Handy. Even when he was up in New York with Fletcher Henderson Band, it was a clarinetist in that band named Buster Bailey. Guess where he was from? He was from Memphis. Guess who he played with? W.C. Handy. So everywhere Louis Armstrong went, he ran to Memphis dudes that really upped his game. Even years later, we had the Louis Armstrong All-Stars. He had a cat in his band, one of my favorite trombonists, named Truman Young. Now, Truman Young was not from Memphis, but guess who he played for? It wasn't W.C. Handy. It was Jimmie Lunceford. See how it works? Somewhere. So with that said, I would say this. There is so much we don't know that needs to be known. And that's the beauty of this life. You always be learning something new every day. So whoever is listening to this podcast, whether now or later, I hope it was worth your time. Thank you for giving me the time to express myself and my love for my people and the love for the things we have to manifest that have profound effect on humanity. And know that the best is yet to come. Thank you all. This really has given me life, man. I really enjoyed talking about this. And I can never talk too much about Jimmie Lunceford, but Okay, know that the best is yet to come. And in the words of Duke Ellington, we love you madly. But if you like the words from Brother Herb, please subscribe to We All Be TV while you can on YouTube. YouTube by playing games. Um, you can wear artivist art. See, I got my Jimmie Lunceford shirt on. This is the original art that I did in honor of Jimmie Lunceford. Go to that Teespring shelf below this description box. You can check out some of my artwork you can wear and buy. Also, you can buy artivist art, r2c2hu.com. And I'm tell you something. This year has been a lot of reflection for me. I'm really going to step up my creative game. I got to step back into my creativity. I got to get my mojo back. That's why I say I'm going to still do the Jimmie Lunceford Festival. In spite of COVID, can't take this legacy. I rebuke thee in the name of Black Jesus. So, with that said, family, thank you all for being patient. Thank you all for being patient, for being kind, for being generous, for being overstanding. We love you madly, in the words of Duke Ellington, and know that the best is yet to come. Also, you can support the movement. You see the Cash App, you see the Google Pay, PayPal, you see the Zelle now, and the Venmo. So there's all types of ways to support this. And we love you madly once again, and y'all keep on producing and pushing, and know that this is a true jazznocracy. One love.